Long before the pyramids pierced the azure skies of ancient Egypt, or the very first whispers of agriculture stirred the fertile crescent, there existed a celestial body, a world shrouded in the mists of cosmic antiquity, known to some as Nibiru. Its story, deeply woven into the fabric of Sumerian cosmology, begins not on Earth, but in the boundless star-dusted ocean of space, a journey spanning eons before its fabled encounters with our own nascent world. Imagine, if you will, a nascent planet, still warm from its tumultuous birth, coalescing from the swirling nebulae and primordial dust that once painted the canvas of our early solar system. This was Nibiru, a world unlike any other in our familiar planetary family, tracing an elliptical, elongated orbit that would carry it far beyond the furthest reaches of Neptune, only to swing back inward, a cosmic pendulum marking epochs with its passage. The very concept of Nibiru, as described in ancient Mesopotamian texts, particularly those interpreted by scholars like Zecharia Sitchin, positions it as a 12th planet in our solar system, though its existence remains a subject of intense scientific debate. Unlike the relatively circular paths of Earth or Mars, Nibiru's journey was a grand, sweeping arc, a solitary wanderer whose orbital period was said to be a staggering 3,600 Earth years. This immense cycle meant that its visits to the inner solar system were rare, momentous events, marking profound shifts and cataclysms in the worlds it approached. One can almost picture it, a distant ruddy orb, slowly emerging from the inky blackness of interstellar space, growing larger, its gravitational pull beginning to exert a subtle, then undeniable influence on its celestial neighbours. The origins of Nibiru itself are shrouded in cosmic mystery. Some ancient accounts suggest it was not originally a part of our solar system, but rather a rogue planet captured by the immense gravitational embrace of our Sun during a primordial pass. Others hint at a more violent genesis, perhaps a fragment born from a colossal collision, or a world that simply formed further out, its unique orbit shaped by the chaotic dance of early planetary formation. This uncertainty about its birth mirrors the broader scholarly disputes surrounding its very existence. Astronomers today actively search for Planet 9 or Planet X, a hypothetical body whose gravitational effects might explain anomalies in the orbits of distant Kuiper Belt objects. While the modern scientific search is based on observational data and mathematical models, the ancient Sumerian narratives, with their detailed descriptions of celestial mechanics, offer a fascinating parallel, hinting at a deep, albeit perhaps allegorical, understanding of the cosmos. As Nibiru embarked on its solitary journey, life, in some nascent form, began to stir within its depths. The conditions on this world, given its extreme elliptical orbit, would have been profoundly different from Earth. Imagine a world plunged into unimaginable cold for millennia as it ventured into the frigid outer reaches of space, only to experience periods of intense warmth as it swung closer to the sun. How could life thrive under such extremes? The ancient texts offer a compelling, if fantastical, answer. Nibiru was a world of advanced beings, the Anunnaki, who possessed the knowledge and technology to overcome these environmental challenges. They were, in essence, masters of their own destiny, shaping their planet to sustain their civilization through its epic voyage. Perhaps, in those early epochs, as Nibiru navigated the cosmic currents, its atmosphere began to thin, slowly leaking into the vacuum of space during its distant, frigid sojourns. To counteract this existential threat, the Anunnaki, with their profound understanding of physics and engineering, devised a solution. They would scatter fine gold dust into their upper atmosphere. This metallic shield, they believed, will act as a protective layer, reflecting harmful radiation and helping to retain their precious atmosphere, a shimmering golden veil against the harshness of space. This detail, derived from interpretations of Sumerian tablets, provides a crucial link to their later interest in Earth, a planet rich in the very element they needed for their survival. It paints a picture of a civilization facing an impending ecological crisis on their home world. Driven by necessity to seek resources beyond their own planetary boundaries, the development of the Anunnaki civilization on Nibiru would have been a testament to resilience and ingenuity. Living on a world with such a vast orbital period would have necessitated a different perception of time, a long-term vision that spanned millennia. Their history would be measured not in centuries, but in the grand cycles of their planet's journey around the sun. Each return to the inner solar system would have been a momentous occasion, a time of renewal and perhaps a reckoning. Their architecture, their social structures, their very philosophy would have been shaped by this unique cosmic rhythm. One can almost envision their cities, perhaps subterranean, shielded from the extremes of their planet's climate, glowing with an inner light, powered by technologies we can only begin to imagine. Their understanding of the cosmos would have been unparalleled, born from countless millennia of observing the stars from their unique vantage point, a perspective that allowed them to chart the intricate dance of the planets with an accuracy that seems almost prescient. The Sumerian texts, particularly the epic poem Enuma Elish, offer a vivid, albeit mythological, account of Nibiru's dramatic entry into our solar system and its profound impact. In this ancient creation myth, Nibiru is identified with the deity Marduk, the patron god of Babylon, who conquers the primordial chaos monster Tiamat. While the narrative is allegorical, many scholars interpret it as a cosmological account of Nibiru's gravitational interaction with a proto-Earth, or a celestial body that eventually formed into Earth and the asteroid belt. This cataclysmic encounter, described with poetic grandeur, speaks of massive gravitational forces, tidal waves of cosmic energy, and the reshaping of planetary bodies. It's a tale that resonates with modern theories of planetary formation, where collisions and near misses were common in the early chaotic days of our solar system. The idea that Nibiru or Marduk created Earth through this interaction is a central theme in these interpretations. As Nibiru passed through the inner solar system, its immense gravitational pull is said to have disrupted a pre-existing planet, Tiamat, splitting it into two major sections. One part, according to this narrative, was struck by Nibiru's moon, forming the Earth, while the other shattered into countless fragments, creating the asteroid belt. This dramatic cosmic ballet, witnessed and recorded in the ancient narratives, speaks to a profound understanding of celestial mechanics, even if couched in mythological language. It suggests that the very genesis of our world, and perhaps even the moon, is intricately linked to the passage of this rogue planet. Historians and linguists still grapple with the exact meaning and interpretation of these ancient texts. Are they literal accounts of historical events, or elaborate metaphors for astronomical phenomena? The debate is fierce and ongoing. Some scholars argue that the Sumerians, with their highly developed astronomical knowledge, were recording actual celestial observations passed down through generations. Others contend that while the texts certainly reflect an advanced understanding of the night sky, their primary purpose was religious and mythological, to explain the origins of their gods and their world through symbolic narratives. This scholarly dispute highlights the challenge of bridging the gap between ancient cosmology and modern science, of deciphering the wisdom of a civilization that viewed the cosmos through a very different lens than our own. The journey of Nibiru, therefore, is not merely a tale of a wandering planet. It is the genesis story of a civilization, the Anunnaki, whose very survival depended on their mastery of their unique world. Their long periods of isolation in the cold, dark reaches of space would have fostered a profound sense of self-reliance and technological advancement. Imagine the generations of Anunnaki, born and living out their lives on this celestial arc, their entire existence defined by the rhythm of their planet's grand orbit. Their astronomers would have been their most revered figures, charting the path, predicting the next return, preparing their civilization for the inevitable shifts. Their engineers would have been constantly at work, maintaining the delicate balance of their atmosphere, ensuring the survival of their people. As Nibiru began its long, slow swing back towards the warmth of the sun, a sense of anticipation would have permeated their world. Pinpricks of light would slowly resolve into familiar planetary bodies. Earth, in particular, would have begun to shine brighter, a beacon of promise, a world teeming with the very resources they desperately needed. The preparations for their descent, their first encounters with our world, would have been meticulously planned over centuries, perhaps even millennia. This return, this crossing, as it is sometimes translated from the Sumerian, was not just a celestial event. It was a pivotal moment in their history, and, as the narratives suggest, a pivotal moment in ours. The stage was set for an interaction that would, according to these ancient accounts, profoundly shape the course of human civilization. The story of Nibiru's genesis is thus a cosmic overture, a prelude to a grand drama that would unfold on Earth. It establishes the Anunnaki not as mere extraterrestrial visitors, but as a civilization forged in the crucible of extreme cosmic conditions, driven by a profound need for survival. Their advanced technology, their longevity, their understanding of the universe, all were products of their unique planetary journey. The seeds of their future interactions with humanity were sown in the very fabric of their homeworld's existence, in its long, lonely voyage through the void, and its periodic, momentous returns. The whispers of their approach, carried on the solar winds, would soon reach the nascent Earth, heralding a new chapter in the story of both worlds. If you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe and leave in the comments the time and place you're listening from. As the crimson dust of Nibiru swirled ever thicker, obscuring the familiar constellations and casting a pall over their once vibrant cities, a profound unease settled upon the Anunnaki. Their world, a celestial wanderer, was slowly but undeniably dying. The once robust atmosphere, a vital shield against the harsh cosmic radiation, was thinning, leaking into the void like sand through an hourglass. The great golden canopy that had once shimmered with life-giving warmth was fading, its protective glow dimming with each passing cycle. The very air they breathed, once crisp and life-sustaining, grew heavy, laden with the metallic tang of decay. For generations, Their most brilliant minds, the Nibiruan scientists and celestial cartographers, had grappled with the impending catastrophe. They had charted the atmospheric decay, measured the escalating radiation levels, and observed the subtle but relentless shifts in their planet's magnetic field. Their calculations, precise and chilling, pointed to a single, inescapable conclusion. Nibiru needed a miraculous intervention, a potent catalyst to restore its failing shield. And that catalyst, they believed, was gold. Not merely as a decorative metal, but as a unique element with properties capable of deflecting radiation and stabilizing their planet's rapidly deteriorating atmosphere. The quest for this precious element became the paramount concern, overshadowing all other pursuits. Expeditions had been dispatched to distant corners of their solar system, probes sent to scout desolate asteroids and barren moons. But the quantities found were always insufficient, mere dustings compared to the vast reserves required. Hope began to wane, a cold dread seeping into the hearts of even the most optimistic among them. Then, through the intricate web of their astronomical observations, a new possibility emerged, a distant blue-green jewel shimmering in the cosmic tapestry. Earth. Their ancient texts, passed down through countless generations, spoke of a world teeming with life, a planet rich in resources, a veritable treasure trove. And among those resources, their sensors now confirmed, were immense veins of gold, lying deep within its crust, waiting to be unearthed. The decision was not made lightly. The journey to Earth was an undertaking of unimaginable scale, fraught with peril. It would require traversing vast interstellar distances, navigating treacherous asteroid fields, and enduring the unforgiving vacuum of space. The risks were immense, the unknowns even greater. The alternative was the slow, agonizing demise of their civilization, the extinction of their entire race. Faced with such a stark choice, the Anunnaki leaders, under the stern and resolute guidance of Anu, their supreme ruler, made the audacious decision they would go to Earth. The preparations for this monumental exodus consumed their entire society. Shipyards, once dedicated to pleasure craft and scientific exploration, were repurposed into colossal construction sites, humming with the energy of thousands of workers. Gigantic vessels, unlike any ever built, began to take shape, their hulls forged from advanced alloys, their engines designed to withstand the rigors of interstellar travel. These were not mere shuttles. They were self-sustaining arcologies, designed to carry a significant portion of their population, along with all the knowledge and technology necessary to establish a new outpost. Among the key figures in this grand endeavor were Enlil and Enki, sons of Anu, each possessing distinct talents and temperaments. Enlil, the elder, was a master of strategy and command, his presence exuding authority and discipline. He was the architect of the mission, the one who oversaw the logistical nightmares, the meticulous planning of supplies, personnel, and the intricate details of establishing a new colony. Enki, the younger, was a brilliant scientist and engineer, his mind a labyrinth of innovative solutions and profound understanding of the natural world. He was the visionary behind the advanced technology, the one who designed the atmospheric processors, the mining equipment, and the life support systems crucial for their survival on an alien world. The tension between the two brothers, A subtle undercurrent that had always existed became more pronounced during this period. Enlil, ever the pragmatist, prioritized efficiency and adherence to established protocols. Enki, with his boundless curiosity and willingness to push boundaries, often chafed under his brother's rigid structure. Yet, despite their differences, they were united by a common purpose: the survival of their people. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of relentless effort, the fleet was ready. The day of departure was etched into the collective memory of the Anunnaki, a moment of profound sadness mingled with a desperate hope. As the great ships, shimmering like metallic stars, ascended from Nibiru's dying surface, a collective sigh rippled through the remaining population. They watched as their kin, their hope for the future, disappeared into the cosmic expanse, a poignant farewell to a world they might never see again. The journey was long and arduous, spanning countless Nibiruan cycles. The Anunnaki, accustomed to the comforts of their advanced civilization, found themselves confined within the metallic shells of their vessels, their lives regulated by the rhythmic hum of the engines and the distant glow of unfamiliar stars. They passed through nebulae of shimmering gas, navigated around rogue planets, and endured the occasional meteor shower, each challenge a stark reminder of the immense distances they were traversing. Their advanced navigation systems, guided by the meticulous charts prepared by their astronomers, kept them on course. Yet even with their sophisticated technology, the journey was not without its moments of doubt and despair. The vastness of space, the profound emptiness between star systems, could be a terrifying thing, a silent testament to their own fragility. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Earth appeared in their viewports, a breathtaking spectacle of swirling blues and greens, a vibrant oasis in the cosmic desert. It was even more magnificent than their senses had indicated, a world teeming with life, a stark contrast to the barren, dying landscape they had left behind. A wave of exhilaration, mingled with a profound sense of relief, washed over the Anunnaki. They had made it. Their initial landing was, by all accounts, a marvel of precision engineering. The enormous ships descended gracefully through Earth's atmosphere, their anti-gravity engines humming softly, touching down in a designated area in what would later be known as the Persian Gulf region. The air, fresh and vibrant, filled their lungs, a stark contrast to the thin, metallic air of Nibiru. The sunlight, warm and golden, bathed their skin, a welcome embrace after the dim, regulated light of their vessels. The first order of business was to establish a secure base, a temporary settlement that would serve as their operational hub. They named it Eridu, home in the faraway, a poignant reminder of the world they had left behind and the new home they sought to build. Under Enlil's strict supervision, the Anunnaki quickly set about constructing shelters, setting up communication arrays, and deploying their advanced mining equipment. Enki, meanwhile, was captivated by Earth's biodiversity. He spent countless hours studying the planet's flora and fauna, his scientific curiosity ignited by the sheer abundance of life. He marveled at the intricate ecosystems, the delicate balance of predator and prey, the vibrant colors of the plants, and the complex chemistry of the oceans. He saw not just a resource-rich planet, but a living, breathing entity, a crucible of evolution. This fascination would later play a crucial role in his interactions with the nascent Phi forms on Earth. Their primary objective, however, remained gold. Geological surveys, conducted with their advanced subsurface scanners, quickly identified the most promising locations. The initial findings confirmed their hopes. Earth was indeed rich in the precious metal, far exceeding their most optimistic projections. The largest and most accessible deposits were located in the Abzu, a region that corresponds to modern-day southern Africa. Thus began the arduous task of mining. The Anunnaki, with their superior technology, deployed massive excavators and drilling machines, capable of extracting vast quantities of ore from the Earth's crust. The work was demanding, physically draining, and relentless. The environment was alien, the climate often harsh, and the sheer scale of the operation was immense. The early days of the mining operations were challenging. The Anunnaki, though technologically advanced, were not accustomed to manual labor. Their society had long since transcended the need for such toil, relying instead on automated systems and highly specialized skills. The physical exertion, the dust, the heat, and the constant threat of cave-ins took their toll. Morale began to waver, and whispers of discontent started to circulate among the workers. A lesser-known detail from this period, often overlooked in the grand narrative, concerns the specialized Anunnaki engineers who designed and operated the atmospheric processors. These individuals, known as the Igigi, were tasked with refining the extracted gold ore and converting it into the fine, monatomic powder that was essential for Nibiru's atmospheric restoration. Their work was highly technical and crucial, yet they were often subjected to the same harsh conditions as the miners, leading to a unique strain of resentment that would later erupt into open rebellion. These Igigi, often seen as a distinct class within the Anunnaki hierarchy, bore the brunt of the initial, most dangerous tasks. Historians still debate the exact nature of the Anunnaki's social structure during this initial colonization phase. Some scholars suggest a rigid caste system, with Anu and his direct lineage at the apex, followed by the Igigi, and then a broader class of workers. Others argue for a more fluid, merit-based hierarchy, where roles were assigned based on expertise and contribution to the mission. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, a complex interplay of inherited status and practical necessity. What is clear, however, is that the immense pressure of the gold mining operation began to expose and exacerbate existing social tensions. The work continued, day after day, cycle after cycle. The extracted gold was processed, refined, and then carefully transported back to Eridu, where it was prepared for eventual shipment back to Nibiru. The scale of the operation was staggering. Mountains were carved out, rivers diverted, and the very landscape of Earth began to bear the indelible marks of the Anunnaki's presence. As the years turned into decades, and the decades into centuries, the Anunnaki established more outposts, expanding their mining operations across the African continent. They built sophisticated infrastructure, including landing strips for their spacecraft, advanced communication networks, and intricate water management systems. They were not merely visitors, they were colonizers, reshaping the Earth to suit their needs, driven by the desperate need to save their home world. Yet despite their technological prowess and their unwavering determination, the burden of the labor continued to weigh heavily upon them. The longing for Nibiru, for the familiar comforts of their dying world, grew stronger with each passing cycle. The very air of Earth, though life-sustaining, was not their own. The alien flora and fauna, though fascinating, were not the familiar landscapes of their home. They were exiles, toiling in a foreign land, their very survival dependent on the gold. They extracted. The seeds of discontent, sown during the initial arduous mining operations, began to sprout. The Igigi, who had endured the most physically demanding and dangerous tasks, felt increasingly exploited. They were the ones who faced the suffocating dust, the searing heat, and the constant threat of accidents. They were the ones who spent their lives deep within the Earth's crust, extracting the very element that would save their civilization. Yet they felt their sacrifices were not adequately recognized. The leadership, primarily Enlil, maintained a strict discipline, emphasizing the critical importance of their mission. He reminded them of Nibiru's plight, of the desperate need for the gold, of the ultimate sacrifice they were making for their people. But even Enlil's stern authority could not entirely quell the growing unrest. The sheer monotony and hardship of the labor were taking their toll, eroding their morale and fostering a deep-seated resentment. This period, marked by immense effort and growing internal strife, was a pivotal moment in the Anunnaki's history. They had successfully navigated the perils of interstellar travel, established a foothold on a new world, and begun the monumental task of extracting the life-saving gold. But the cost was high, both in terms of physical exertion and the psychological toll it took on their society. The stage was set for a dramatic turning point, a moment when the Anunnaki would be forced to confront not only the challenges of an alien planet, but also the simmering tensions within their own ranks. The quest for gold, born of desperation, was slowly but surely transforming them, pushing them to the brink, and ultimately leading them to consider an unthinkable solution. The whispers of discontent among the Igigi, those younger Anunnaki who toiled in the mines of Earth, grew louder with each passing cycle. Their celestial brethren, the elder Anunnaki, had descended from the heavens, their grand vessels parting the clouds like silent silvery fish. They had come to this verdant world not for conquest, but for survival. Their home planet, Nibiru, a distant wanderer in the cosmic ocean, was slowly losing its protective atmospheric shield. The solution, they believed, lay beneath the Earth's surface, a shimmering, precious dust, a monatomic gold that could be milled into a fine powder and dispersed into Nibiru's upper atmosphere, repairing the damage. The work was relentless, the heat oppressive, and the dust a constant golden shroud. For thousands of Earth years, the Igigi had endured, their strength and patience slowly eroding. Their protests, at first murmurs, soon swelled into a chorus of defiance. They laid down their tools, their metallic picks and shovels glinting uselessly in the harsh sunlight. They refused to continue. "The burden is too great," they cried, their voices echoing through the cavernous mines. "We will not endure this endless toil." This rebellion, unprecedented and deeply unsettling, sent ripples of concern through the Anunnaki leadership. Enlil, the stern and unyielding commander, favored a harsh hand, a swift suppression of the uprising. But Enki, the brilliant and compassionate chief scientist, saw a different path, one born of ingenuity rather than force. He understood the weariness of the Igigi, for he himself, with his vast knowledge of genetics and life forms, had often pondered the ethical quandary of their endless labor. The grand assembly of the Anunnaki convened, their luminous robes shimmering in the soft light of their council chambers. The air was thick with tension, the fate of their mission, and perhaps even their home world, hanging in the balance. Enlil argued for discipline, for the unwavering adherence to their sacred duty. But Enki, with his calm demeanor and persuasive intellect, presented an audacious alternative. "Let us create a primitive worker," he proposed, his voice resonating with quiet conviction. "A being fashioned in our image, yet designed for this very purpose. A being that can bear the burden, freeing our Igigi brethren." A murmur swept through the assembly. Such a creation, a deliberate manipulation of life itself, was a profound undertaking, a step into the unknown. Ninti, the chief medical officer and geneticist, a being of immense wisdom and gentle hands, stood beside Enki, her gaze steady. She had long collaborated with him in the quiet hum of their laboratories, exploring the intricate dance of DNA and the mysteries of biological engineering. Enki's vision was clear: to combine the genetic material of an existing Earth creature with that of the Anunnaki. He had observed the nascent hominids, these upright walking beings, with their nascent intelligence and adaptable forms, already roaming the plains of ancient Africa. These early hominids, perhaps Homo erectus or an even earlier ancestor, possessed a rudimentary tool-making ability and a social structure, suggesting a promising foundation. The scientific endeavor that followed was a marvel of advanced biotechnology, a testament to the Anunnaki's mastery over life itself. In their pristine laboratories, filled with strange, glowing instruments and vats of bubbling genetic solutions, Enki and Ninti began their work. They carefully extracted genetic material from the chosen hominid, a creature whose DNA, while primitive, held the potential for remarkable transformation. Then, with meticulous precision, they began to splice in segments of Anunnaki DNA, the very essence of their own advanced species. The goal was not to create another Anunnaki, but a hybrid, a being capable of understanding simple commands, possessing the physical strength for labor, and yet lacking the complex consciousness that might lead to rebellion or existential questioning. They sought a worker, an Adamu, as they would come to call it, meaning earthling or one from the earth. The initial experiments were fraught with challenges. Many attempts ended in failure, the nascent life forms dissolving, unable to reconcile the disparate genetic codes. The process was slow, painstaking, and required immense patience. Historians still debate the exact nature of the clay mentioned in ancient texts, whether it refers to a literal earthly substance or a metaphorical representation of genetic material, a primordial soup from which life was fashioned. Some scholars suggest the clay was a sophisticated biological medium, a nutrient-rich gel designed to nurture the developing embryo. Others believe it refers to the very earth and water of this planet, imbued with specific mineral properties that somehow facilitated the genetic fusion. Ninti, with her nurturing touch and profound understanding of biological processes, played a crucial role. She oversaw the delicate incubation, the careful monitoring of each cellular division, each heartbeat. She was the lady of life, the one who breathed form into the genetic blueprints. The first successful Adamu was not born, but rather grown, a testament to their advanced reproductive technologies. It was a being of impressive stature, stronger than its hominid ancestors, with a more refined intellect, yet still bound by instinct and a simpler understanding of the world. The birth, or rather the maturation, of the first Adamu was a moment of profound significance. It was a male, robust and capable, but the process was slow and a single worker would not suffice. Enki and Ninti realized that a faster, more efficient method of reproduction was needed. They began to experiment with the concept of surrogacy. Using Anunnaki females as hosts for the genetically engineered embryos, This too was a challenging endeavor. The Anunnaki females, with their advanced biology, were not always receptive to carrying these hybrid embryos. The process was physically demanding and emotionally taxing. Ninti herself, in her dedication to the project, is said to have undertaken the burden of carrying one of the early Adamu, a testament to her unwavering commitment. The ancient texts speak of her labor, her pain, and ultimately her success in bringing forth the first fully viable Adamu. This detail, often overlooked, highlights the immense personal sacrifice involved in this grand scientific undertaking. The first generation of Adamu was strong, resilient, and obedient. They were taught simple tasks, their minds focused on the rhythmic swing of the pickaxe, the careful sifting of the golden dust. Their lives were dedicated to the mines, to the service of their creators. They were the primitive workers, the solution to the Igigi's rebellion, the answer to Nibiru's atmospheric crisis. As more Adamu were created, their numbers growing steadily, a new social structure emerged. The Anunnaki became the overseers, the instructors, guiding these nascent beings in their arduous tasks. The mines, once filled with the disgruntled cries of the Igigi, now hummed with the rhythmic sounds of the Adamu's labor, a testament to Enki's ingenious solution. But even in this engineered existence, there were subtle complexities. The Adamu, though designed for labor, possessed a spark of something more. They could learn, they could adapt, and in their simple interactions, there were glimmers of curiosity, of burgeoning emotion. They were not mere automatons. They were living beings, albeit ones with a very specific purpose. The Anunnaki, in their wisdom, understood the delicate balance they had struck. They had created a workforce, but they had also, inadvertently, set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of Earth's history. The Adamu, these genetically modified beings, were the progenitors of humanity, the very first ancestors of the species that would one day inherit this planet. The creation of the Adamu marked a pivotal moment. It was a testament to the Anunnaki's advanced scientific capabilities, their ability to manipulate life at its most fundamental level. But it also raised profound questions, questions that would echo through the ages. What were the ethical implications of creating a sentient species for labor? What responsibilities did the creators bear towards their creation? These were not questions that the Anunnaki fully grappled with in their immediate need, but they were questions that would, in time, become central to the narrative of humanity itself. The early Adamu lived in communal settlements near the mines, their days structured around work and simple sustenance. They were provided with food, shelter, and basic instruction by their Anunnaki overseers. Their lives were rudimentary, yet purposeful. They learned to communicate through a basic language, a simplified version of the Anunnaki tongue, tailored to their cognitive abilities. They were taught to recognize patterns, to understand commands, and to perform their tasks with efficiency. Ninti, in particular, maintained a compassionate interest in her creations. She observed their development, their interactions, and even their rudimentary forms of expression. While their primary function was labor, she understood that they were living beings, and she sought to ensure their well-being within the parameters of their designed existence. The Igigi, now freed from the grueling mining work, found new roles within the Anunnaki hierarchy, some overseeing the Adamu, others engaged in different aspects of the mission. The rebellion had been quelled, not by force, but by a stroke of scientific brilliance. The gold continued to flow from the Earth's depths, processed and transported to Nibiru, slowly repairing the atmospheric damage. Yet even as the Adamu toiled, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift was occurring. Their Anunnaki DNA, though a small fraction of their genetic makeup, carried with it the seeds of something more. It was a spark of higher consciousness, a latent potential for greater intelligence, for self-awareness that lay dormant within their genetic code. The Anunnaki had intended to create a worker, not a rival, but the very act of blending their essence with that of Earth's primitive hominids had unforeseen consequences. This period, often referred to as the Edenic phase by some scholars, was a time of supervised existence for the Adamu. They lived in a world where their needs were met, their tasks defined, and their lives guided by their creators. There was no concept of struggle for survival, no harsh realities of the wild, for their existence was curated. They were, in essence, children of a grand experiment, shielded from the complexities of the world, yet unknowingly carrying the genetic blueprint for a future far grander than their creators could have initially imagined. The creation of the Adamu was not merely a biological event. It was a cultural and societal one. It established a hierarchy, a relationship between creator and created that would profoundly influence the myths and legends of future civilizations. The Anunnaki, with their advanced technology and their role as life-givers, became the gods of these nascent beings, figures of immense power and authority. The Adamu, in their simple understanding, revered and obeyed them, for their very existence was a gift from these celestial beings. The exact location of these first Adamu settlements, the Eden, or Garden of Eden, as it is sometimes interpreted, is a subject of ongoing debate. Some ancient texts suggest a fertile region in Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a place of lush abundance where the Anunnaki established their primary operational centers. Perhaps these early settlements were indeed paradisical, a controlled environment designed to optimize the Adamu's productivity and well-being. The image of a garden, a place of order and provision, fits well with the idea of a carefully managed workforce. This era, spanning thousands of Earth years, saw the slow but steady proliferation of the Adamu. They were guided, instructed, and their numbers gradually increased, ensuring a continuous supply of labor for the vital mining operations. The Anunnaki, having solved their immediate problem, continued their work on Earth, extracting the precious gold and observing the slow evolution of their creation. They were the silent architects of humanity's genesis, their advanced science weaving the very fabric of our earliest ancestors. The dust of the mines, once a symbol of toil, now became a testament to a unique partnership, a delicate balance between necessity and creation, between the needs of a distant world and the nascent stirrings of life on Earth. The air in the Eden, once a symphony of gentle breezes and the rustling of exotic leaves, now often carried the low hum of dissent, a discordant note that vibrated through the very foundations of the Anunnaki council chambers. The Adamu, the workers of the earth, had proven themselves capable, their hands adept at the tasks assigned, their minds surprisingly quick to grasp new concepts. They toiled in the gold mines, their bodies strong, their movements efficient, and the Anunnaki overseers, initially skeptical, had begun to acknowledge their value. Yet as their efficiency grew, so too did a subtle unease among some of the Anunnaki. Enki, ever the innovator, watched the Adamu with a paternal pride that often bordered on obsession. He saw not just tools, but potential. He observed their nascent curiosity, the way their eyes would linger on a particularly intricate plant. or how a simple act of kindness between them would spark a flicker of something akin to joy in their crude faces. He believed they were ready for more, that their evolution, though guided, was a natural progression. He envisioned a future where they could not only serve, but also understand, where their labor would be infused with a conscious purpose beyond mere instinct. His brother, Enlil, however, saw only peril. For Enlil, the Adamu were a means to an end. A genetically engineered workforce designed to alleviate the Anunnaki's burden. Their purpose was clear, their role defined. To grant them further knowledge, to awaken their minds beyond the necessities of their tasks, was to invite chaos, to blur the lines between creator and created. He feared the unpredictable nature of an awakened consciousness, the potential for rebellion, the erosion of the very order they had established on this distant planet. The Eden, in his eyes, was a controlled environment, a garden cultivated for a specific yield, and introducing the serpent of knowledge would poison the fruit. The debate raged in the great halls of the Anunnaki, echoing with the metallic clang of their advanced technology and the hushed whispers of their ancient disagreements. Anu, the venerable patriarch, listened with a heavy heart, his gaze often drifting towards the distant blue sphere of Earth, a world that seemed to be slipping further from their control with each passing cycle. He understood Enki's vision, the allure of creating something truly remarkable, a sentient species capable of independent thought. But he also felt the weight of Enlil's warnings, the pragmatic concerns about maintaining order and ensuring the continued flow of gold back to Nibiru. Enki, with his characteristic blend of scientific zeal and compassionate foresight, argued that true intelligence was not a gift to be withheld, but a seed to be nurtured. He pointed to the Adamu's developing language, their ability to communicate complex ideas among themselves, albeit in rudimentary forms. He spoke of their capacity for rudimentary tool-making beyond the initial instruction, a sign of their inherent problem-solving abilities. He believed that by granting them a fuller understanding of their world, by awakening their higher cognitive functions, they would become not just more efficient workers, but truly conscious beings, a testament to Anunnaki ingenuity. He even suggested that this awakening might unlock a deeper spiritual connection, the profound appreciation for the cosmos that would enrich both their existence and perhaps even the Anunnaki's own understanding of their place in the universe. Enlil, conversely, saw only the inherent dangers. He argued that the Adamu were still too primitive, too emotional, too susceptible to the baser instincts that even the Anunnaki, with their millennia of evolution, sometimes struggle to control. He painted a grim picture of a world plunged into anarchy, where the Adamu, armed with knowledge they couldn't fully comprehend, would turn against their creators, their burgeoning intelligence, twisted into resentment and ambition. He reminded the council of past mistakes, of other species they had uplifted on other worlds, only to witness their eventual self-destruction or their violent uprising against their benefactors. He emphasized the sacred duty they held to Nibiru, to ensure the gold supply, and that this duty superseded any philosophical or experimental urges. The specific knowledge at the heart of this dispute was not merely academic instruction. It was a more profound awakening, a genetic modification that would unlock the full potential of their frontal lobes, granting them abstract thought, self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of their own mortality and the world around them. It was, in essence, the tree of knowledge in its most literal biological sense. Historians still debate the exact nature of this genetic intervention? Was it a single, decisive act, a direct manipulation of their DNA? Or was it a more gradual process, a series of subtle adjustments over many generations, culminating in a critical threshold of cognitive ability? Some theories suggest that Enki, in his eagerness, might have already begun some preliminary modifications without full council approval, setting the stage for the inevitable confrontation. Others believe the serpent in the ancient narratives was not a literal creature, but a symbolic representation of Enki himself. Or perhaps a faction of his followers, who subtly introduced these changes, tempting the Adamu with the promise of greater understanding. One lesser-known detail from the ancient tablets describes a period of intense secrecy surrounding Enki's laboratories in the Edin. There are fragmented accounts of strange lights emanating from his experimental facilities, and hushed conversations among the Igigi, the lower-ranking Anunnaki who often served as guards and technicians, about unusual biological samples being transported under heavy escort. These tantalizing glimpses suggest that Enki was indeed engaged in clandestine research, pushing the boundaries of what was permitted, driven by a vision that transcended the immediate needs of the gold mines. The tension reached a fever pitch when a young Adamu, a female known in some fragmented texts as Lilith, displayed an unprecedented level of self-awareness. She questioned her purpose, not with anger, but with a profound, almost melancholic curiosity. She observed the Anunnaki with an intensity that unsettled many of them, her eyes seeming to penetrate beyond their physical forms to the very essence of their being. She began to teach other Adamu, sharing her insights, fostering a sense of community and independent thought that directly challenged the established order. Her actions, though seemingly innocuous, were seen by Enlil as irrefutable proof of Enki's dangerous meddling. Anu, caught between his two powerful sons, was forced to make a decision that would forever alter the course of Earth's history. He convened a final, solemn council. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and the heavy weight of destiny. Enki, with his characteristic eloquence, pleaded his case, arguing for the inherent right of all sentient beings to knowledge, for the beauty of a conscious universe. He spoke of the potential for a symbiotic relationship, where the Adamu, once fully awakened, could contribute to the Anunnaki's own understanding of life and the cosmos, perhaps even helping them to find a solution to Nibiru's dwindling atmosphere. Enlil, his face etched with grim determination, countered with the stark realities of power and control. He reiterated the Anunnaki's primary mission, the fragility of their colonial enterprise, and the imperative of maintaining absolute authority. He warned that once the Adamu tasted the fruit of knowledge, there would be no turning back, no way to contain their burgeoning intellect and their inevitable desire for autonomy. He argued that the gift Enki offered was in fact a coup, the Pandora's box that would unleash unforeseen consequences upon both species. The decision, when it finally came from Anu, was a compromise, a reflection of his own internal struggle. He acknowledged Enki's vision, but he also bowed to Enlil's concerns about control. The Adamu would be granted the knowledge. Their minds would be fully awakened, but there would be consequences. They would no longer be allowed to remain in the pristine Eden, the Garden of Delights. They would be cast out, forced to fend for themselves in the harsher, untamed lands beyond its protective walls. This expulsion, Anu decreed, would serve as both a punishment for their burgeoning independence and a necessary separation to prevent a direct confrontation with the Anunnaki. It was a way to allow them to grow, but at a distance, under the watchful, yet less intrusive, gaze of their creators. The implementation of this decision was swift and deeply impactful. The genetic modifications, whether a culmination of Enki's secret work or a final decisive act, were performed. The Adamu's eyes, once reflecting a simpler understanding, now sparkled with a newfound depth, a dawning awareness of their own individuality, their own mortality, their own place in the vastness of existence. They looked at the world with fresh eyes, seeing not just trees and rivers, but the intricate web of life, the cycles of nature, the beauty and terror of their surroundings. They understood their own nakedness, not just physically, but existentially, a profound realization that set them apart from all other creatures. The expulsion from the Eden was a wrenching moment. The Adamu, now fully conscious, felt the sting of loss, the sadness of leaving the paradise they had known. The gentle breezes of the garden seemed to whisper farewell. The vibrant flowers bowed in silent commiseration. They walked out, hand in hand, into the vast unknown wilderness, their minds alight with questions, their hearts heavy with a mixture of fear and burgeoning hope. The Anunnaki watched from above, some with pity, others with grim satisfaction. Enki, his face a mask of complex emotions, saw the bittersweet triumph of his vision, the dawn of a new era for humanity, even if it began with exile. Enlil, observing the departing figures, felt a fleeting sense of victory, but perhaps also a flicker of apprehension about the unpredictable future they had just unleashed. The serpent's wisdom, as it came to be known in later human mythologies, had indeed ignited a profound schism among the Anunnaki. It had challenged their authority, forced them to confront the ethical implications of their creations, and irrevocably altered their relationship with the beings they had engineered. The Eden, once a symbol of their power and control, now stood as a testament to a pivotal moment of choice, a decision that had set humanity on a path of independent evolution, a journey fraught with both hardship and the boundless potential of a truly conscious mind. The walls of the garden, perhaps, whispered stories to the stars, recounting the day when knowledge was granted and paradise was lost, only for a new, more complex world to begin. The air, once crisp with the scent of fertile earth and the distant tang of the sea, began to thicken, heavy with an unspoken dread. A subtle shift in the rhythm of the world, barely perceptible at first, started to weave its way into the daily lives of both the Anunnaki and their human charges. The sun, though still blazing in the azure sky, seemed to carry a different weight. Its light a little less comforting, a little more insistent. The nights, too, held a new quality, the stars appearing to shimmer with an unusual intensity, as if whispering secrets of a coming change. This was not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, creeping unease that settled over the land like a gathering storm. For generations, the Anunnaki had observed the heavens with an unparalleled precision, their understanding of celestial mechanics far surpassing anything humanity would conceive for millennia. They had charted the paths of planets, noted the cycles of distant stars, and meticulously recorded every anomaly. And now, these ancient observations, passed down through countless generations of their own kind, pointed to an inescapable truth. A great deluge was coming. Not a localized flood, born of overflowing rivers or relentless rains, but a global cataclysm, a cosmic event that threatened to engulf the entire world beneath a churning, unforgiving sea. The source of this impending disaster was a celestial body, a rogue planet or perhaps a massive comet, whose gravitational pull was already beginning to exert a subtle but profound influence on Earth. The Anunnaki knew its name, its trajectory, and the devastating impact it would have. They had seen such events before in the deep memory of their own planet, Nibiru, and the knowledge filled them with a chilling certainty. The oceans would rise, mountains would crumble, and the very fabric of the world would be rent asunder. The council chambers on Earth, usually filled with the measured tones of debate over resource allocation or the governance of human cities, now buzzed with a frantic urgency. Enlil, ever the pragmatist, argued for a swift and decisive course of action. His voice, usually booming with authority, was now laced with a grim resignation. He believed that the humans, their creations, were a flawed experiment, too numerous, too prone to discord, and ultimately expendable. The Deluge, in his view, was a natural cleansing, a cosmic reset button. To attempt to save them would be a futile expenditure of precious resources and energy. Resources that should be focused on preserving their own kind and their essential technologies. But Ea, his half-brother, the brilliant and compassionate scientist, vehemently disagreed. His heart, or whatever passed for it in an Anunnaki, was stirred by a profound sense of responsibility. He had poured his intellect and a measure of his own essence into the creation of humankind. He had guided them, taught them, and watched them grow, stumble, and rise again. To abandon them to such a horrific fate felt like a betrayal of the highest order. He saw not just a biological experiment, but a burgeoning civilization, a testament to their own ingenuity and perhaps a reflection of their own potential. The debate raged for what felt like an eternity, the very air crackling with the tension between the two powerful brothers. Other Anunnaki leaders weighed in, their opinions divided. Some, like Enlil, saw the humans as little more than tools, their purpose fulfilled. Others, perhaps swayed by Ea's impassioned pleas or a nascent sense of empathy, felt a flicker of remorse at the thought of their complete annihilation. This internal conflict, a struggle between cold logic and burgeoning compassion, was a defining moment for the Anunnaki on Earth. It highlighted a growing divergence in their perspectives, a crack in the unified front they had once presented to the nascent human world. The mystery of why the Anunnaki, with their advanced technology, could not simply the celestial threat remains a subject of scholarly debate. Some theories suggest that the scale of the impending catastrophe was simply too vast, even for their capabilities. Perhaps their technology, while impressive, was not godlike in its ability to manipulate cosmic forces on such a grand scale. Others propose that their primary directive was observation and guidance, not direct intervention in the natural order of the cosmos, even when that order threatened their creations. Still others wonder if there was a deeper, more profound reason, a cosmic law they dared not break, or a prophecy they were powerless to alter. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the subtle signs of the coming deluge grew more pronounced. The tides, once predictable, became erratic, surging higher than ever before, then retreating to expose vast stretches of seabed. The earth itself began to groan. Tremors shaking the ground with increasing frequency. The air grew heavy and humid, a suffocating blanket that pressed down on all living things. The animals, with their innate connection to the earth's rhythms, grew restless, their cries echoing through the forests and plains with a new, mournful quality. Even the plants seemed to droop, their vibrant greens fading to a sickly yellow. The humans, oblivious to the true nature of the impending doom, began to sense a profound disquiet. Their shamans and wise men, attuned to the subtle energies of the world, spoke of dark omens and unsettling dreams. They saw visions of towering waves and a sky consumed by a terrifying darkness. They offered sacrifices, chanted prayers, and performed ancient rituals, desperately seeking to appease the unseen forces they believed were angered. They did not understand the cosmic mechanics at play, but their instincts, honed over millennia of survival, screamed of impending disaster. Ea, unable to sway the full council to his side, decided to act independently, a decision that would forever alter the course of human history. He could not openly defy Enlil, whose authority was paramount, but he could find a way to circumvent the decree. He sought out a single human, a man known for his piety, his wisdom, and his unwavering devotion to the Anunnaki. This man, whose name would echo through the ages as Utnapishtim, or Ziusudra in some traditions, lived a simple life, tending his flocks and honoring the gods. He was a man of integrity, a rare beacon of virtue in a world that was, in Enlil's view, increasingly debauched. One night, as the moon hung low and heavy in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows, Ea appeared to Utnapishtim in a dream. His voice, usually resonating with authority, was softened by an unusual urgency. He spoke not in riddles, but in clear, concise instructions, though cloaked in the language of divine revelation to avoid direct insubordination to the other Anunnaki. He warned Utnapishtim of the coming deluge, describing in vivid detail the destruction that awaited the world. He instructed him to build a great boat, an ark of immense proportions, capable of withstanding the coming storm. Ea provided Utnapishtim with precise measurements, specifications for its construction, and even the materials needed. He told him to seal it with bitumen, to make it watertight, and to build multiple decks. But most importantly, he commanded Utnapishtim to gather 2 of every living creature, male and female, along with his family and the seeds of all plants. This was not merely an act of preservation, but an act of defiance, a quiet rebellion against the decree of annihilation. Utnapishtim, upon waking, was filled with a mixture of terror and awe. The dream had been so vivid, so real, that he could still feel the weight of Ea's words in his mind. He knew the task was monumental, seemingly impossible for a single man and his family. The sheer scale of the undertaking, the secrecy required, and the immense effort involved would test the limits of his faith and his endurance. Yet he did not hesitate. He understood the gravity of the situation, the immense trust placed upon him. He began his work in secret, gathering timber, fashioning tools, and preparing the pitch. His neighbors, seeing his inexplicable activities, mocked him, believing him to be mad. They questioned his sanity, his sudden obsession with building a massive vessel in the middle of dry land. Utnapishtim, bound by Ea's instructions not to reveal the true nature of the impending disaster, offered vague explanations, speaking of a divine command to build a great house, a sanctuary. He endured their ridicule, their laughter, and their scorn, his resolve unwavering. Perhaps these walls whispered stories to the stars as Utnapishtim toiled, his hands calloused, his back aching, but his spirit unyielding. He worked day and night, his family assisting him in every possible way. The sheer physical effort required to fell trees, shape planks, and seal the vast structure was immense. It was a testament to human resilience and devotion, a quiet act of faith in the face of an incomprehensible threat. Meanwhile, the Anunnaki observed the unfolding events with a mixture of fascination and growing apprehension. Even Enlil, though still convinced of the necessity of the deluge, could not help but notice the escalating signs of the coming catastrophe. The Earth's magnetic field began to fluctuate wildly, the very air crackling with an unseen energy. The sky, once a familiar canvas of blue, now frequently swirled with ominous clouds, their colors shifting from bruised purple to angry black. The sun, when it broke through, cast an eerie blood-red glow upon the landscape, painting the world in shades of impending doom. The lesser-known detail about this period is the profound psychological impact it had on some of the Anunnaki. While many remained detached, viewing the humans as mere pawns, others, particularly those who had spent more time among them, began to experience a form of existential dread. They had witnessed human joy, sorrow, love, and struggle. They had seen their capacity for both great good and great evil. The thought of their complete obliteration, even for the sake of a cosmic reset, weighed heavily on their ancient minds. They were not immune to the beauty of the world they had helped to shape, nor to the complex tapestry of life that had blossomed under their watchful eyes. As the ark neared completion, the signs of the deluge intensified dramatically. The ground shook almost continuously, not with violent quakes, but with a deep, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very core of the earth. The air grew thick with an oppressive humidity, making breathing difficult. Strange luminous phenomena appeared in the night sky, streaks of light and shimmering auroras that defied explanation. The animals, sensing the imminent danger, began to migrate en masse, their instincts driving them to higher ground, only to be turned back by the rising waters. Finally, the day arrived. The sky, which had been a brooding grey for days, suddenly tore open, not with rain, but with a torrent, a deluge of water unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. It was as if the very heavens had burst, unleashing an unimaginable volume of liquid. Simultaneously, the subterranean waters, the great deeps beneath the earth, erupted, geysers of water shooting skyward, adding to the cataclysm. The sound was deafening, a roar that swallowed all other noise, a symphony of destruction. Utnapishtim, his family, and the animals he had gathered were safely inside the ark, the massive door sealed tight, just as Ea had instructed. As the first colossal waves crashed over the land, the ark, a tiny vessel against the fury of a world consumed, lifted from the ground, tossed and buffeted by the churning waters. From within, they could hear the terrifying roar of the storm, the splintering of trees, the crashing of mountains, and the desperate cries of those who had not heeded the warning. It was a sound that would haunt their memories for the rest of their lives. The Anunnaki, from their celestial vessels or their elevated strongholds, watched in horror and awe as the world below them transformed. The familiar contours of the land disappeared beneath a boundless, raging sea. Mountains became islands, then vanished altogether. The cities they had built, the temples they had consecrated, the very landscape they had cultivated, were swallowed by the churning abyss. Even Enlil, who had advocated for this cleansing, was said to have been moved to tears, witnessing the sheer scale of the destruction. The cries of the perishing humans, though distant, resonated in their minds, a haunting echo of a world lost. The deluge lasted for days and nights, an unending maelstrom of wind, rain, and surging water. The ark, though battered, held firm, a beacon of hope adrift in a sea of despair. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of damp wood, animal musk, and the unspoken fear of the unknown. Utnapishtim, guided by an inner strength and his unwavering faith, tended to his family and the creatures, ensuring their survival. He was the last bastion of life in a world that had been utterly remade by the cosmic forces. When the waters finally began to recede, after what felt like an eternity, the world that emerged was vastly different. The familiar landmarks were gone, replaced by a desolate, muddy expanse. The air, though still heavy, carried the scent of wet earth and a strange, profound silence. The Anunnaki, descending from their safe havens, surveyed the devastation. Their experiment, their creation, had been all but wiped away. Only the ark, a testament to Ea's compassion and Utnapishtim's obedience, remained. The sight of the ark, resting on a newly formed mountain, was a moment of profound revelation for the Anunnaki. It was a stark reminder of the power of life, the resilience of creation, and the unexpected consequences of their own decisions. The very act of saving a remnant of humanity, against the will of some, had introduced a new variable into their grand design. The future, once seemingly predictable, was now uncertain, filled with the echoes of a past that had been dramatically, irrevocably altered. The Great Deluge had not only reshaped the earth, but it had also, in its own terrible way, reshaped the Anunnaki themselves. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of impending doom. A hush fell over the land, not of peace, but of a terrible anticipation, as if the very world held its breath. The decision had been made. The decree issued from the highest echelons of the Anunnaki Council. Humanity, deemed too loud, too numerous, too much of a burden, was to be swept away. The Great Deluge, a cleansing wave of cosmic proportions, was to be unleashed. Yet even in the face of such a formidable decree, there was one who could not stand idly by. Enki, the clever, the compassionate, the creator of humankind, wrestled with his conscience. His heart, perhaps, still held a flicker of the joy he had felt in their creation, a lingering sense of responsibility for the beings he had brought forth. He moved with a quiet urgency, a shadow against the looming disaster. To openly defy the council, especially Enlil, his brother and the architect of humanity's destruction, was unthinkable. A direct challenge that could plunge the Anunnaki into their own devastating conflict. So Enki chose a different path, one of cunning and subtle intervention. He sought out Utnapishtim, a man of great piety and wisdom, a king in the city of Shuruppak, known for his devotion and his pure heart. The choice was deliberate, for Utnapishtim was not just a man, but a symbol of the potential humanity held, a testament to the very qualities Enlil found so irritatingly loud. Enki approached Utnapishtim, not in a dream, as some myths suggest, but with a whisper carried on the wind, a thought implanted directly into his mind, a vision of what was to come. He spoke of the coming destruction, the relentless waters that would engulf the world, and gave precise instructions. "Build a boat," the voice urged, "a great vessel, strong and sealed against the deluge. Abandon your possessions, your house, your earthly treasures, and save life. Bring into the boat the seed of all living creatures." The words were specific, detailed, a blueprint for survival. The dimensions, the materials, the method of sealing, all were imparted with an urgency that left no room for doubt. Utnapishtim, a man of unwavering faith, did not question. He gathered his family, his craftsmen, and began the monumental task. The people of Shuruppak, seeing their king dismantle his home and construct this colossal vessel, must have been bewildered, perhaps even mocking. What madness possessed their ruler? But Utnapishtim, guided by the unseen hand of Enki, pressed on. The ark took shape, a massive, multi-decked structure, sealed with bitumen, designed to float upon the most tumultuous seas. It was a testament to human ingenuity, spurred by divine intervention, a vessel of hope in a world teetering on the brink of despair. As the ark neared completion, the signs of the coming catastrophe became undeniable. The air grew heavy, the sky a bruised purple, and a low, ominous rumble echoed across the land. The Anunnaki themselves, or at least those who had decreed the flood, watched from their celestial abodes, perhaps with a grim satisfaction, perhaps with a touch of unease. The moment arrived. The heavens opened, not with gentle rain, but with a furious downpour that seemed to tear at the fabric of the sky. The subterranean waters, too, burst forth, geysers erupting from the earth's core, joining the celestial torrent. The storm raged for days and nights, a relentless, deafening roar that swallowed all other sounds. The cities, the fields, the mountains themselves were consumed by the rising tide. The ark, a solitary beacon of defiance against the raging elements, bobbed and swayed, a tiny vessel in an infinite, churning ocean. Inside, Utnapishtim and his family, along with the chosen animals, endured the terrifying ordeal. The fear must have been palpable, the sound of the storm, a constant, terrifying reminder of the world they had left behind, a world now utterly submerged. They were adrift, cut off from everything familiar. Hair survival hanging by a thread. After what felt like an eternity, the storm began to abate. The rains softened, then ceased. The winds died down, and a strange, unearthly calm descended. Utnapishtim cautiously opened a window, and what he saw must have been both a relief and a profound sorrow. The world was a vast, featureless expanse of water, stretching to the horizon in every direction. There was no land in sight, only the endless, shimmering surface. He released a dove, hoping it would find a resting place, a sign of receding waters. The dove returned, exhausted, finding no dry land. He waited, then released a swallow, which also returned. Finally, he sent forth a raven, a bird known for its resilience and its ability to find carrion. The raven did not return, a silent signal that land had emerged, that life in some form was beginning anew. The ark eventually came to rest on the peak of Mount Nimush, or perhaps the more commonly known Mount Ararat, depending on the specific tradition one consults. The waters slowly receded, revealing a landscape utterly transformed. The world was scoured clean, a pristine yet desolate canvas. Utnapishtim and his family, along with the animals, emerged from the ark into this new, stark reality. Their first act was one of profound gratitude. He built an altar and offered a sacrifice, a sweet savour rising to the heavens, a gesture of thanks to the divine power that had guided them through the storm. The Anunnaki, observing from above, caught the scent of the sacrifice. Enlil, who had orchestrated the deluge, was furious to discover that survivors existed. His plan had been thwarted, his decree defied. But Enki, ever the diplomat, stepped forward. He explained his actions not as defiance, but as a preservation of a valuable creation. He argued that total annihilation was not the path to order, that a remnant, a chosen few, could learn from the catastrophe and build a better world. He reminded Enlil of the effort that had gone into creating humanity, the precious resources and knowledge invested. A debate, perhaps a heated one, ensued among the Anunnaki. Some, like Enlil, remained staunch in their belief that humanity was a nuisance, a mistake to be corrected. Others, perhaps swayed by Enki's words, or by the sight of the lone family emerging from the ark, began to see the possibility of a different future. This moment, this pivotal argument, highlights a recurring theme in ancient myths: the internal struggles and differing perspectives, even among divine beings. It's a fascinating glimpse into the perceived complexities of their pantheon, suggesting that even gods were not monolithic in their decisions. Historians and mythologists still ponder the exact nature of these disagreements, wondering if they reflect genuine theological debates within ancient societies, or simply serve as narrative devices to explain human suffering and survival. Ultimately, a compromise was reached. Humanity would be allowed to continue, but with certain limitations, certain controls, a divine adjustment to prevent future overpopulation and the accompanying noise that so irritated Enlil. Utnapishtim and his wife, however, were granted immortality, a unique reward for their faith and their role in preserving life. They were taken to dwell in a distant land, a paradise at the mouth of the rivers, a place where they would forever be a living testament to Enki's compassion and humanity's resilience. The world slowly began to heal. The waters receded further, revealing fertile plains, new riverbeds, and the skeletal remains of the old world. The survivors, the lineage of Utnapishtim, began the arduous task of rebuilding. They carried with them the knowledge of the past, the memory of the Great Flood, a cautionary tale whispered from generation to generation. This event, the Great Deluge, became a foundational myth for countless cultures, a powerful narrative of destruction and rebirth, of divine judgment and ultimate salvation. The Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, dating back to at least the 21st century BCE, provides one of the earliest and most detailed accounts of this flood narrative, featuring Utnapishtim as the central figure who survives the catastrophe. The similarities to later flood stories, including the biblical account of Noah, are striking and have fueled centuries of scholarly debate about their common origins or shared cultural memory. The Anunnaki, having made their decision, retreated further into their celestial spheres. Their direct involvement in human affairs lessened, though their presence continued to be felt. Their influence woven into the very fabric of human civilization. They left behind not just the memory of their power, but also the seeds of knowledge, the foundational principles of agriculture, architecture, and governance that would allow humanity to flourish once more. The post-Diluvian world was a blank slate, a chance for humanity to forge its own destiny, albeit under the distant gaze of its creators. The emergence from the Ark marked a new epoch, a new beginning. The air, once thick with the stench of death and the roar of the storm, now carried the fresh scent of damp earth and new growth. The sun, once obscured by angry clouds, shone with a renewed brilliance, casting long, hopeful shadows across the nascent landscape. The world was quiet, a vast, echoing silence that spoke of both loss and promise. The few who remained carried a heavy burden, the weight of memory, the responsibility of starting anew. They were the inheritors of a world reborn, tasked with tending to its fragile beginnings, with ensuring that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. Perhaps, in the quiet moments of rebuilding, as the first shoots of grain pushed through the softened earth, they looked up at the stars, wondering if the Anunnaki still watched, if their silent presence still guided their hands. Perhaps they pondered the immense power that had almost extinguished them, and the unexpected compassion that had allowed them to endure. The story of the Ark and the aftermath is not just a tale of destruction, but of resilience, of a fragile hope clinging to life in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a testament to the enduring human spirit and to the complex, often contradictory nature of divine intervention. The world had been cleansed, but the memory of the old world and the silent understanding of the Anunnaki's power would forever shape the new. The world, cleansed by the Great Flood, slowly began to breathe again, a verdant tapestry unfurling beneath the watchful eyes of the Anunnaki. From the Ark, or from the scattered remnants of those who survived on higher ground, humanity emerged, few in number, but with an innate drive to rebuild, to reclaim the fertile plains that had once been their home. The memory of the Deluge, though terrifying, also brought a renewed sense of purpose, a collective yearning for security and a desire to leave an indelible mark upon the land. As generations passed, the descendants of Noah, or Utnapishtim as he was known in Mesopotamian lore, multiplied. They spoke a single tongue, a unified voice that echoed across the nascent civilizations springing up along the great rivers. This linguistic unity fostered an unprecedented cooperation, a collective ambition that began to coalesce around a singular, monumental project. They settled in the land of Shinar, a fertile plain in Mesopotamia, and there a grand idea took root, to build a city, and within it a tower whose top would reach into the heavens. This was no ordinary ziggurat, no mere temple to earthly deities. This was to be a beacon, a symbol of human ingenuity and collective might, a structure that would pierce the very veil between the mortal and the divine. The people, filled with a zealous determination, began to fashion bricks from clay and bitumen, working with a singular focus that transcended individual desires. They envisioned a world where their voices, their prayers, their very presence could ascend directly to the celestial abode of their gods. Perhaps they sought to prevent another catastrophic flood, believing a tower of such height would offer refuge. Or perhaps, as some ancient texts suggest, they sought to make a name for themselves, to establish a legacy that would echo through eternity, challenging the very order of the cosmos. The Anunnaki, from their orbital platforms, or perhaps from their terrestrial outposts, observed this burgeoning human enterprise with a mixture of fascination and growing unease. Enlil, ever the stern disciplinarian, saw in this tower a profound act of hubris, a direct challenge to the divine prerogative. The humans, who he had once sought to eradicate, were now attempting to breach the heavens, to assert their equality with the gods. This was an affront, a dangerous escalation of mortal ambition that threatened the delicate balance of power. Enki, ever the patron of humanity, might have felt a flicker of pride in their ingenuity, a quiet satisfaction in the flourishing of his creation. Yet even he recognized the potential for chaos, the inherent instability in a unified, ambitious humanity that might one day turn its collective will against its creators. The Anunnaki had given them knowledge, had guided their early steps, but this new endeavor felt different, an independent assertion of will that hinted at a future where humanity might no longer be content with its assigned place. The ancient Sumerian epic of Enmakar and the Lord of Aratta, though predating the biblical account of Babel, speaks of a time when all lands spoke a single language, offering a glimpse into the Mesopotamian understanding of linguistic unity. This ancient text describes a plea to the god Enki to restore this lost unity, hinting at a past era of universal understanding that was somehow broken. This echoes the narrative of Babel, suggesting a deep-seated cultural memory of a time before the fragmentation of human speech. The Anunnaki convened, their council chambers perhaps filled with the soft hum of advanced technology, or perhaps with the resonant echoes of their ancient voices. The debate was likely intense, a clash of perspectives mirroring the fundamental differences between Enlil and Enki. Some among them might have argued for a direct intervention, a display of overwhelming power to dismantle the tower and crush human ambition. Others, perhaps more pragmatic, sought a solution that would preserve humanity while curbing its dangerous ascent. The decision, when it came, was subtle yet profoundly impactful. It was not a physical destruction of the tower, though that might have been easily accomplished. Instead, it was a manipulation of the very fabric of human communication. Let us go down, the Anunnaki decided, and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. This intervention was not a punishment in the traditional sense, but a strategic division, a re-engineering of human interaction designed to prevent their unified ascent. Imagine the scene. One morning, as the sun climbed above the nascent tower, a subtle shift began. A bricklayer, calling for more mortar, found his words met with blank stares. A foreman, issuing instructions, heard only gibberish in response. The common tongue, the shared understanding that had bound them together, began to fray, then unravel. What was once clear became opaque. What was once unified became fractured. The sounds that had once conveyed meaning now created confusion, then frustration, then suspicion. This wasn't a sudden, cataclysmic event, but a gradual, insidious erosion of understanding. Perhaps it began with subtle dialects, then expanded into distinct languages, each group suddenly finding themselves isolated by an invisible barrier of sound. The collective ambition, the shared dream of reaching the heavens, began to crumble not under the weight of divine wrath, but under the weight of incomprehension. The great project stalled, then ceased. The city, intended as a monument to unity, became a symbol of division. Historians and linguists still debate the origins of the vast diversity of human languages. While the Tower of Babel provides a mythical explanation, the scientific understanding points to gradual divergence over millennia, influenced by geographical separation and cultural evolution. However, the ancient narrative of a single proto-language splitting into many resonates deeply across cultures, suggesting a universal human experience of linguistic fragmentation. The Sumerian king list, for example, mentions a period before the flood, when kingship descended from heaven, and some scholars speculate that this pre-Diluvian era might have been imagined as a time of greater unity, both linguistic and societal. With the collapse of their unified language, humanity could no longer effectively collaborate on such grand collective projects. The Anunnaki strategy had worked. The builders, now unable to communicate, began to disperse. They scattered across the face of the earth. Each group carrying with them a new distinct language, a new way of seeing and naming the world. This dispersion was not merely a physical scattering, but a cultural and linguistic fission, leading to the diverse tapestry of peoples and tongues we see today. This strategic division served multiple purposes for the Anunnaki. Firstly, it prevented humanity from becoming too powerful, too unified, too ambitious to challenge their creators. A divided humanity was a manageable humanity. Secondly, it facilitated the Anunnaki's own territorial claims and resource management. With humanity fragmented into distinct linguistic and cultural groups, the Anunnaki could more easily assign different regions of the earth to different factions or individual Anunnaki lords. Imagine the earth as a vast, resource-rich planet, newly reset after the flood. The Anunnaki, needing various minerals, metals, and agricultural products, would have found it far more efficient to manage distinct, localized human populations rather than a single, monolithic global civilization. Each linguistic group could be guided, perhaps even subtly manipulated, to develop specific skills or exploit particular resources in their assigned territories. One group might excel in mining, another in agriculture, another in crafting. This division of labor, N4, said by linguistic and geographical separation, would have streamlined the Anunnaki's operations and minimized the potential for widespread rebellion. This period of dispersion also marks a significant shift in the relationship between humanity and the Anunnaki. While direct interaction continued in many regions, the era of a unified, globally directed human civilization under the direct tutelage of the Anunnaki seemed to end. Instead, a more decentralized system emerged, with individual Anunnaki acting as regional deities or overseers, each guiding their own human populations, often in competition or alliance with other Anunnaki. The myth of the Tower of Babel, found in various forms across ancient cultures, is a powerful testament to humanity's enduring fascination with its own origins and the diversity of its languages. It speaks to a deep-seated human memory, or perhaps an archetypal understanding of a time when the world was simpler, more unified, and then, for reasons both divine and human, became fragmented. The ziggurat of Etemenanke in Babylon, dedicated to the god Marduk, is often cited as a possible inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel, though its construction dates much later than the mythical event. Its sheer scale and ambition, however, certainly evoke the spirit of the ancient narrative. As humanity spread, so too did the echoes of Anunnaki influence. Each new civilization, each distinct culture, carried within its myths and legends the memory of its divine patrons, its sky gods, its creators. The names changed. Enlil became El, Enki became Ea, Inanna became Ishtar. But the underlying archetypes, the stories of powerful beings who descended from the heavens to guide, to teach, and sometimes to punish, remained remarkably consistent. The dispersion was not without its challenges. New lands brought new environments, new predators, and new struggles. But humanity, resilient and adaptable, persevered. They learned to build new homes, to cultivate new crops, and to navigate the complexities of their new, fragmented world. The memory of the Great Tower, the symbol of their failed ambition, served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the boundaries that existed between the mortal and the divine. And so, the world became a mosaic of cultures, languages, and beliefs, each piece a unique expression of human ingenuity and resilience. The Anunnaki, from their hidden enclaves or their distant celestial abodes, continued to observe, to guide, and occasionally to intervene. The grand experiment of humanity, now divided and dispersed, continued its long and winding journey, forever shaped by the events at the Tower of Babel, forever marked by the strategic hand of its creators. The silent, watchful eyes of the Anunnaki followed every step, every triumph, every struggle, as their scattered children began to forge their own destinies on a world they now shared, but no longer fully understood. The twilight of the ages, when the Anunnaki still walked among us, saw a profound shift in the human story. It was a time when the scattered settlements, born of necessity and shared labor, began to coalesce into something grander, something more enduring, the city. And with the city came a new order, a new form of governance that would echo through millennia: kingship. The Anunnaki, observing the burgeoning human populations and the complexities arising from their growth, recognized the need for a more structured societal framework. They had gifted humanity with agriculture, with writing, with the very tools of civilization, and now they would guide them in its administration. It is said that kingship descended from heaven, a divine institution bestowed upon humanity by the great gods themselves. This wasn't merely a symbolic gesture, it was a practical directive. The Anunnaki, through their chosen intermediaries, established the concept of a single powerful leader, a king, who would mediate between the heavens and the earth, ensuring divine favor and earthly prosperity. These early kings were not just rulers. They were often seen as priest kings, their authority intertwined with religious duty, their pronouncements carrying the weight of divine will. Their palaces were often adjoined to or even incorporated within the great temple complexes, physical manifestations of this sacred bond. The first city to truly embrace this new order, according to ancient Sumerian texts like the Sumerian king list, was Eridu. Before the flood, it is listed as the seat of the first kingship, a place where the Anunnaki themselves were said to have resided, guiding humanity in the nascent stages of their civilization. Imagine Eridu, rising from the flat plains of Mesopotamia, its ziggurat, a stepped mountain reaching for the sky, its canals teeming with life, its markets bustling with the produce of the Fertile Crescent. Here, under the watchful eyes of the Anunnaki, the first kings learned the art of governance, how to organize labor for monumental construction, how to administer justice, how to lead armies, and how to maintain the delicate balance between the human realm and the divine. The establishment of kingship was not a singular event, but a gradual process, taking root in various city-states across Mesopotamia. Each city, under the guidance of its patron deity, often an Anunnaki lord or lady, developed its own unique character, its own laws, its own traditions. Uruk, Lagash, Kish, these names resonate through history, not just as cities, but as the cradles of civilization, each a testament to the Anunnaki's influence. Uruk in particular grew to become one of the largest and most influential cities of its time. Its massive walls encompassing an area of several square kilometers, a truly awe-inspiring feat of engineering for the late 4th millennium BCE. Its legendary king, Gilgamesh, though later immortalized in epic poetry, is believed to have been a historical figure, ruling Uruk around 2700 BCE, a testament to the enduring power and prestige of these early monarchs. The Anunnaki's role in this development was multifaceted. They were not merely distant overseers. They were active participants, at least in the early stages. They provided the knowledge of sophisticated irrigation systems, transforming arid lands into fertile fields capable of sustaining large populations. They taught humans the principles of urban planning, guiding the layout of streets, the construction of defensive walls, and the placement of temples and administrative buildings. Perhaps most crucially, they instilled in humanity the concept of law and order, the understanding that a society could not flourish without a shared set of rules and a governing authority to enforce them. The famous Code of Ur-Nammu, predating Hammurabi's more well-known code by several centuries, around 2100 to 2050 BCE, provides a fascinating glimpse into the legal systems there. At emerged under this Anunnaki-influenced kingship. It outlines laws concerning property, marriage, and personal injury, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of societal needs and the importance of justice. While Ur-Nammu himself was a human king, the underlying principles of divine mandate and structured law can be traced back to the earlier Anunnaki directives. These codes were not arbitrary. They were presented as divinely inspired, designed to maintain cosmic harmony on Earth. Yet, the nature of the Anunnaki's direct involvement in these later periods remains a subject of scholarly debate. Did they continue to walk among the kings, offering direct counsel? Or had their presence become more symbolic, their influence channeled through priests and omens? Some ancient texts suggest a more direct, almost hands-on approach, with Anunnaki deities occasionally appearing to their chosen kings in visions or even in physical form. Other interpretations lean towards a more distant, guiding role, where the Anunnaki established the foundational principles and then allowed humanity to develop within those parameters. The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in between, a gradual withdrawal as humanity matured, much like a parent allowing a child to eventually govern their own life. Albeit with foundational lessons deeply ingrained, the rise of these powerful city-states, each with its king, also brought about a new dynamic: competition. Resources, trade routes, and fertile lands became points of contention, leading to conflicts between neighboring cities. The Anunnaki, while fostering civilization, did not eliminate human nature. Indeed, some ancient narratives hint at rivalries even among the Anunnaki themselves, which occasionally mirrored or even instigated conflicts among their human charges. The Standard of Ur, a remarkable Sumerian artifact from around 2500 BCE, vividly depicts both scenes of peace and war, showcasing the dual realities of these early city-states, periods of prosperity and artistic flourishing, juxtaposed with the harsh realities of conquest and defense. One lesser-known detail from this era is the role of the Ensi, a title often translated as city ruler or governor, which in some periods preceded or coexisted with the title of Lugal or king. The Ensi was often seen as a more priestly figure, deeply connected to the city's patron deity, while the Lugal, particularly in later periods, assumed more secular and military authority. This distinction suggests an evolution in governance, perhaps reflecting a gradual shift from purely theocratic rule, heavily influenced by the Anunnaki, to a more human-centric administration, even if still divinely sanctioned. The Ensi might have been the direct intermediary for the Anunnaki, while the Lugal was the human leader who implemented their will and managed the temporal affairs of the city. The intricate tapestry of early human societies was woven with threads of innovation, faith, and ambition. The Anunnaki's gifts of knowledge and structure allowed for unprecedented societal complexity. Temples grew into monumental structures dedicated to the Anunnaki deities, serving as centers of worship, economic activity, and learning. Priests and scribes trained in the arts of cuneiform writing meticulously recorded everything from temple inventories to royal decrees, preserving the knowledge that would allow future generations to glimpse into this foundational era. The invention of the wheel, the development of sophisticated metallurgy, the creation of intricate art and jewelry. All these advancements flourished within the framework of the Anunnaki-established city-states. Imagine the bustling streets of Uruk, the scent of baking bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay, and the sweet perfume of incense rising from the Eanna district, dedicated to Inanna, the Anunnaki goddess of love and war. Picture the scribes diligently incising cuneiform into wet clay tables, documenting harvests, trade agreements, and the pronouncements of the king. Hear the distant chanting from the ziggurat, a rhythmic prayer to the heavens, seeking blessings from the Anunnaki. This was a world where the divine was not distant, but intimately woven into the fabric of daily life, where every harvest, every victory, every birth was attributed to the benevolence or the wrath of the great gods. The concept of divine kingship, established by the Anunnaki, proved to be incredibly resilient. Even as their direct presence waned, the idea that a king's authority stemmed from a higher power persisted, shaping political structures for thousands of years. From the pharaohs of Egypt, considered living gods, to the emperors of China, who ruled under the mandate of heaven, the legacy of Anunnaki-initiated kingship echoed across continents and civilizations. It provided a powerful justification for rule, a unifying force for diverse populations, and a framework for large-scale societal organization. However, historians still debate the precise mechanisms of this transition. Was it a conscious decision by the Anunnaki to step back, allowing humanity to take the reins of its own destiny? Or was it a more gradual process of assimilation and adaptation, where human leaders slowly absorbed the functions previously performed by divine beings? Some theories suggest that as humanity grew in number and complexity, the direct intervention of the Anunnaki became less practical, leading to the establishment of human intermediaries who could manage the day-to-day affairs of a sprawling civilization. The Sumerian king list itself, with its often impossibly long reigns for early kings, followed by more historically plausible durations for later monarchs, hints at a shift from a mythical, divine past to a more grounded human reality. The enduring mystery lies in the nature of the Anunnaki's ultimate departure or withdrawal. While their influence is undeniable in the establishment of kingship and the rise of city-states, the narrative of their physical presence gradually fades from historical records, giving way to a more abstract understanding of their divine power. Did they leave Earth entirely, returning to their celestial abode? Or did they simply recede into the background, their guidance becoming less direct, more spiritual? The ancient texts offer tantalizing clues, but no definitive answers, leaving us to ponder the final chapters of their direct interaction with humanity. What is clear, however, is the profound and lasting impact of their initial intervention. The Anunnaki didn't just give humanity tools, they gave them a framework for existence. A blueprint for civilization that laid the groundwork for all subsequent human societies. The intricate tapestry of early human societies, with its kings, its laws, its temples, and its bustling cities, stands as a monumental testament to this extraordinary period of collaboration and guidance. And as the sun set on the era of direct Anunnaki presence, it rose on a new dawn for humanity, a dawn where the seeds of civilization, carefully planted and nurtured by the sky dwellers, had finally taken root and begun to blossom, forever changing the course of human history. The whispers of their names, the stories of their deeds, would continue to echo through the temples and palaces, reminding humanity of the divine origins of their earthly kingdoms. The Golden Age, for all its brilliance, contained the seeds of its own undoing. A subtle shift in the Anunnaki psyche began to manifest, a growing discord that whispered beneath the surface of their magnificent cities. The long years of plenty, the ease of their dominion, and perhaps even the very longevity that granted them such perspective, also bred a certain complacency, a detachment from the immediate consequences of their actions. Of vast distances between their various outposts, though bridged by sophisticated travel, fostered regional identities that sometimes verged on rivalries. The initial unity of purpose that had driven their arrival and the establishment of Earth's first civilizations began to fray at the edges, much like an ancient tapestry, slowly unraveling, thread by thread. The core of this burgeoning strife lay in differing philosophies regarding their role on Earth and the future of humanity. Some, like Enlil, advocated for a more distant, guiding hand, believing that humanity, once established, should be allowed to evolve largely independently, with minimal direct intervention. They saw the potential for humanity to become a vibrant, self-sufficient civilization, a testament to Anunnaki ingenuity, but ultimately separate. Others, particularly Enki and his lineage, held a more paternalistic view, feeling a deeper connection and responsibility for their creations. They believed in continued guidance, in nurturing humanity through its developmental stages, seeing them as an extension of their own legacy. This ideological chasm, though initially subtle, deepened over centuries, exacerbated by minor disputes over resources, territorial boundaries between their respective domains, and even personal grievances that accumulated over millennia. The friction reached a critical point with the development of increasingly potent weaponry. The Anunnaki, masters of advanced physics and cosmic energies, had long possessed devices that could reshape landscapes and harness immense power. These tools, originally conceived for terraforming and resource extraction, began to be viewed through a different lens as tensions escalated. The whispers of war, once unthinkable among such advanced beings, grew louder, fueled by a dangerous combination of pride, perceived slights, and the chilling logic of preemptive defense. One particular incident stands out as a stark precursor to the coming catastrophe, the destruction of the city of Ur. While the details remain shrouded in the mists of time, ancient texts hint at a localized conflict, perhaps a territorial dispute or a rebellion by a human populace emboldened by conflicting Anunnaki factions. The precise nature of the weapon used is debated by scholars even today. Was it a directed energy pulse, a seismic disruptor, or something more akin to what we now understand as nuclear fission? Whatever its form, The result was devastating. Or, a once thriving metropolis was reduced to rubble, its inhabitants annihilated, leaving behind only a scorched scar on the landscape and a chilling warning of the destructive power held by their celestial overseers. This event, though localized, sent shockwaves through the Anunnaki leadership, a grim foretaste of what unchecked conflict could unleash. The final, cataclysmic act unfolded in a series of events that would forever alter the face of the Earth and the trajectory of both Anunnaki and human history. The immediate cause, as best as can be pieced together from fragmented records and archaeological anomalies, was a bitter internal struggle over a crucial resource or strategic location, perhaps the very spaceports and staging grounds that facilitated their interstellar travel. The details are murky, but the outcome is terrifyingly clear. In a moment of profound hubris and desperation, a faction of the Anunnaki unleashed weapons of mass destruction, not against humanity, but against each other and against the very infrastructure they had so painstakingly built. The ancient texts speak of a day of terror, of winds of death and fire that consumed the land. These are not mere poetic metaphors. They describe the devastating effects of nuclear warfare. The evidence, though interpreted differently by various historical schools, points to multiple detonations across the ancient Near East. The most prominent theory, supported by geological and archaeological findings, suggests a series of powerful explosions in the region of the Sinai Peninsula and the Dead Sea. These were not primitive bombs. These were devices of immense power, capable of vaporizing cities and altering atmospheric conditions. Imagine the horror, the blinding flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, followed by the deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the earth. Mushroom clouds, towering monuments to destruction, ascended into the stratosphere, carrying with them radioactive fallout that would drift for days, weeks, even months. The immediate blast zones were incinerated, leaving behind vitrified sand and craters that would scar the landscape for millennia. Beyond the initial blast, a terrifying wave of radiation spread, silently poisoning the air, water, and soil. The evil wind, described in ancient Sumerian laments, was not a mythical curse, but the very real phenomenon of radioactive dust carried by prevailing winds, bringing sickness and death to those far removed from the epicenters of the explosions. The sheer scale of this devastation was unprecedented. Cities, once vibrant centers of Anunnaki and human life, were obliterated. The Fertile Crescent, the cradle of civilization, was ravaged. The ecological impact was profound and long-lasting. Rivers were contaminated, crops failed, and entire ecosystems collapsed. The very air became thick with dust and ash, dimming the sun and plunging parts of the world into a nuclear winter, albeit a localized one. The Anunnaki, for all their wisdom and power, had unleashed a force they could not entirely control, a force that turned their magnificent achievements into monuments of their folly. The psychological impact on the surviving Anunnaki was equally profound. Witnessing the destruction wrought by their own hands, the loss of their cherished creations, and the suffering inflicted upon humanity stirred a deep sense of remorse and disillusionment. The internal strife that had led to this catastrophe suddenly seemed petty and insignificant in the face of such widespread devastation. The once clear purpose of their mission on Earth became clouded by guilt and despair. This cataclysm forced a profound re-evaluation of their presence on Earth. The planet, once a vibrant outpost and a source of invaluable resources, was now a wounded world, scarred by their conflict. The resources they had sought were now contaminated or inaccessible. More importantly, the trust between the Anunnaki factions and between the Anunnaki and humanity was shattered. How could they continue to guide a species when they themselves had proven so destructive? A great council was convened, a somber gathering of the surviving Anunnaki leaders. The debates were long and arduous, filled with recrimination and regret. Some argued for a renewed effort to rebuild, to atone for their mistakes. Others, however, pointed to the irreparable damage, the inherent danger of their continued presence, and the cyclical nature of their own conflicts. The consensus that slowly emerged was a difficult one. A strategic retreat was necessary. This decision was not made lightly. Earth had been their project for hundreds of thousands of years. A grand experiment in genetic engineering and societal development. To abandon it felt like a profound failure. Yet the alternative, to remain and risk further self-destruction, or to continue to interfere with a humanity now traumatized and potentially hostile, seemed even more perilous. The withdrawal was gradual, spanning several centuries. It involved dismantling key facilities, securing sensitive technologies, and most painfully, severing direct ties with their human creations. Many Anunnaki, particularly those who had formed deep bonds with humanity, found this separation agonizing. Enki, in particular, is often depicted in ancient texts as lamenting the fate of his black-headed people, struggling with the decision to leave them to navigate a world forever changed. Before their final departure, the Anunnaki undertook a massive effort to preserve knowledge and guide humanity towards a path of recovery. They imparted essential skills for survival in the altered landscape, shared advanced agricultural techniques, and left behind repositories of knowledge, encoded in various forms, from meticulously crafted cuneiform tablets to more esoteric forms of data storage, perhaps even embedded within the very genetic memory of certain human lineages. They established new centers of learning, where a select few humans were entrusted with the sacred duty of safeguarding this wisdom, ensuring that the flame of knowledge would not be extinguished entirely. These were the origins of the mystery schools and secret societies that would later emerge in human history, dedicated to preserving esoteric wisdom passed down from the gods. The departure itself was not a single dramatic event, but a slow fading from direct interaction. The great skyships, once a common sight, became rarer, then mere legends. The Anunnaki presence became less overt, less physical, retreating into the realm of myth and memory. They did not abandon Earth entirely, perhaps maintaining distant observation posts or leaving behind a few custodians to monitor humanity's progress from afar. But the era of direct, overt Anunnaki rule was over. The legacy of this cataclysm and retreat is multifaceted. For humanity, it was a period of immense suffering and regression, a dark age where much of the advanced knowledge they had been given was lost or corrupted. The memory of the gods and their wondrous technologies transformed into religious dogma and fragmented myths. The once unified human civilization, nurtured under Anunnaki guidance, fractured into disparate tribes and emerging city-states. each grappling with the harsh realities of a post-cataclysmic world. The psychological trauma of the evil wind and the destructive power of their creators left an indelible mark on the human psyche, shaping early religious beliefs and anxieties about divine wrath. For the Anunnaki, the experience was a sobering lesson in the dangers of unchecked power and internal discord. It forced them to confront their own fallibility, to recognize that even advanced civilizations are susceptible to the same destructive impulses that plague nascent species. Their retreat from Earth was not a sign of weakness, but a strategic decision born of wisdom and a profound understanding of the need for self-preservation and the long-term well-being of all involved. Historians still debate the precise timeline and the exact nature of the weapons used in this devastating conflict. Some scholars argue that the nuclear interpretation is too anachronistic, suggesting instead highly advanced conventional weaponry or even geoengineering devices gone awry. Others point to the striking parallels between ancient descriptions of these events and modern understanding of nuclear fallout, including specific symptoms of radiation sickness described in Sumerian laments. The lingering mystery adds another layer of intrigue to this pivotal moment in Earth's deep history. The lingering question remains: did the Anunnaki truly leave? Or did they merely recede into the shadows, continuing to observe, perhaps even subtly influence, humanity's trajectory from behind the veil of myth and legend? The answer, like so much of their story, lies hidden in the interplay of ancient texts, archaeological enigmas, and the boundless reaches of human imagination. But on. The thing is certain. The Cataclysm marked a profound turning point, ending one chapter of Earth's history and setting the stage for the emergence of humanity as the primary architects of its own destiny, albeit with the echoes of their celestial creators still resonating in their collective memory. The scars of the nuclear cataclysm, though largely invisible to the modern eye, remain etched into the very fabric of the planet, a silent testament to a time when gods walked among men and nearly brought about their own undoing. As the final echoes of the great deluge faded and the world slowly began to mend its scars, a different kind of quiet descended upon the lands where the Anunnaki had once walked with such imposing presence. Their withdrawal was not a sudden dramatic exodus, but a gradual fading, like the last embers of a grand bonfire. The reasons for their departure remain shrouded in the mists of time, a subject of endless contemplation for those who pore over the ancient tablets. Did their mission simply conclude? Had the resources they sought been depleted, or perhaps were they called back to Nibiru by a crisis we cannot fathom? The texts offer tantalizing hints, but no definitive answers, leaving us to wonder about the silent farewells, the last starships lifting off into the velvet night, leaving behind a world irrevocably changed. Yet even in their absence, the Anunnaki's legacy continued to ripple through the fabric of human civilization, an indelible mark etched deep into our collective consciousness. Their influence was not merely a matter of grand structures or advanced technologies. It was woven into the very tapestry of human thought, belief, and societal structure. The concept of divine kingship, for instance, a cornerstone of early Mesopotamian civilizations, bears the unmistakable imprint of Anunnaki rule. The idea that a ruler's authority was divinely ordained. that they served as intermediaries between the gods and humanity, directly mirrored the Anunnaki's hierarchical governance. Kings like Gilgamesh, though legendary, were said to have interacted directly with the gods, receiving wisdom and decrees that shaped their reigns. This model of leadership, where power flowed from the heavens to the earthly throne, persisted for millennia, influencing empires from Egypt to Rome. Long after the names of Enlil and Enki had receded into myth, the intricate legal codes that emerged from Mesopotamia, such as the famous Code of Hammurabi circa 1754 BCE, also echo the Anunnaki's emphasis on order and justice. While Hammurabi's laws were a human creation, the underlying principle of a structured society governed by divine statutes with consequences for transgression resonated deeply with the Anunnaki's own system of decrees and judgments. The concept of May, the divine decrees or laws that govern the universe and human society, was a foundational element of Sumerian thought, directly attributed to the Anunnaki. These May encompassed everything from kingship and priesthood to crafts and ethical conduct, essentially providing the blueprint for civilization as humanity understood it. When Inanna famously stole the May from Enki, it was not merely a tale of cunning, but a narrative about the transfer of fundamental civilizing principles. Perhaps the most profound and enduring legacy of the Anunnaki lies in the realm of human myth and religion. The stories of creation, the Great Flood, the pantheon of anthropomorphic deities with their passions, rivalries, and interventions in human affairs. These narratives, first recorded on clay tablets, became the bedrock upon which countless later mythologies were built. The Epic of Gilgamesh, with its hero's quest for immortality and his encounter with Utnapishtim, the survivor of the Deluge, shares striking parallels with later flood narratives found in various cultures, including the biblical account of Noah. While scholars debate the precise mechanisms of transmission, the thematic similarities are undeniable, suggesting a common ancestral narrative rooted in the Mesopotamian tradition. The very concept of gods interacting with humans, guiding their destiny, demanding worship, and sometimes even intermarrying with them, finds its earliest and most detailed expressions in the Anunnaki narratives. These were not abstract, ethereal deities, but powerful beings with distinct personalities, often flawed, who lived among humanity or in accessible realms. They ate, drank, loved, fought, and made decisions that directly impacted human lives. This tangible, relatable quality of the divine, so prevalent in ancient polytheistic religions, can be seen as a direct inheritance from the Anunnaki paradigm. Even the architectural marvels of ziggurats, towering step pyramids designed to reach towards the heavens, were physical manifestations of humanity's desire to connect with these powerful sky-dwellers, to bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine. The Anunnaki's influence also extended to the nascent fields of astronomy and mathematics. The Sumerians, under what many believe was Anunnaki tutelage, developed an incredibly sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. Their sexagesimal base 60 number system, which gave us the 360-degree circle and the 60-minute hour, was remarkably advanced for its time. They meticulously charted the movements of celestial bodies, distinguishing between planets and stars, and developed a complex calendar system. While the Anunnaki's own knowledge of these subjects was undoubtedly far superior, their teachings, or at least the inspiration they provided, laid the groundwork for future astronomical and mathematical discoveries. The precise alignment of some ancient structures with astronomical events, a phenomenon observed across various cultures, hints at a shared, perhaps divinely inspired, understanding of the cosmos. One lesser-known detail about their legacy involves the origins of certain agricultural practices. While the mainstream view attributes the development of agriculture solely to human ingenuity through trial and error, some ancient texts suggest a more direct intervention. The god Enlil, for instance, is often depicted as the patron of farming and irrigation, providing the knowledge and tools necessary for cultivating grain and managing water resources. The sudden emergence of complex irrigation systems in Mesopotamia, far more sophisticated than what might be expected from early Neolithic societies, leads some to ponder whether the Anunnaki imparted specific techniques or even engineered new strains of crops better suited for cultivation in the Fertile Crescent. The domestication of animals and the development of specialized agricultural tools also saw rapid advancements in the period following the Anunnaki's initial presence, suggesting an accelerated learning curve for humanity. The scholarly dispute surrounding the Anunnaki's legacy often centers on the interpretation of the ancient texts themselves. Are these accounts literal historical records of extraterrestrial beings, or are they elaborate allegories, myths crafted by early humans to explain the inexplicable and to codify their understanding of the world? Mainstream archaeology and history generally favor the latter, viewing the Anunnaki as personifications of natural forces, societal structures, or human archetypes. They argue that attributing advanced knowledge or technological prowess to external entities diminishes human agency and ingenuity. However, proponents of a more literal interpretation point to the extraordinary detail in the descriptions as Anunnaki technology, their skyboats and fire-breathing dragons, which some interpret as rockets or advanced aircraft, and the consistent narrative across various independent texts. They ask, why would ancient peoples invent such specific, consistent, and often scientifically plausible details if they were merely crafting allegories? The debate remains a vibrant one, with new linguistic and archaeological discoveries occasionally adding fuel to both sides, ensuring that the Anunnaki remain a captivating enigma. Even the concept of human destiny, our place in the cosmic order, seems to have been profoundly shaped by the Anunnaki narrative. The idea that humanity was created for a specific purpose, to serve the gods, to toil for them, or perhaps even to carry on their legacy, instilled a sense of meaning and direction in early human societies. This divine mandate, however interpreted, provided a framework for understanding existence and humanity's role within it. The Sumerian belief that humans were fashioned from clay and divine blood, a mixture of earthly and heavenly essence, speaks to a profound sense of connection to the Anunnaki, a shared ancestry that elevated humanity beyond mere animalistic existence. This concept of a divine spark within humanity, a potential for greatness, and a connection to a higher power, became a recurring theme in subsequent spiritual traditions. As the millennia rolled on, the direct memory of the Anunnaki faded, transforming from historical figures into mythical deities, their stories becoming more symbolic than literal. Yet the foundations they laid remained. The cities they helped build, the agricultural practices they influenced, the legal frameworks they inspired, and above all, the myths they seeded in the human imagination, continued to shape civilizations for thousands of years. The very idea of a pantheon of gods, each with their domain and personality, each interacting with the human world, became a pervasive model for religious thought, from the Greek Olympians to the Norse Aesir. The gradual shift from direct interaction to distant reverence marked a new phase in humanity's relationship with the divine. No longer walking among them, the Anunnaki became beings to be worshipped, placated, and sought through prayer and ritual. Their temples, once perhaps administrative centers or landing pads, evolved into sacred spaces, symbols of humanity's yearning for connection with the unseen forces that governed their world. The priests and priestesses who tended these temples became the new intermediaries, interpreting the will of the gods and guiding human society in their absence. The enduring impact of the Anunnaki also manifests in the persistent human fascination with the stars and the possibility of life beyond Earth. Long before modern astronomy, ancient cultures across the globe looked to the heavens with a sense of wonder and perhaps recognition. The idea that beings from other worlds visited Earth, shared knowledge, and influenced human development, while often relegated to the fringes of mainstream thought, continues to resonate deeply within popular culture and alternative historical theories. This persistent narrative of cosmic visitors shaping our past is in many ways a modern echo of the ancient Anunnaki tales, demonstrating the powerful hold these stories have on the human imagination. Even in our modern age, when science and technology have demystified much of the cosmos, the questions raised by the Anunnaki narratives continue to intrigue. Who were they? Why did they come? And what was their ultimate purpose? These questions, born from ancient clay tablets, continue to prompt inquiry, pushing the boundaries of our understanding of history, mythology, and humanity's place in the universe. The silent withdrawal of the Anunnaki did not signify an end to their story, but rather a transformation, a transition from physical presence to enduring legacy, woven into the very fabric of human civilization, awaiting rediscovery and reinterpretation by each new generation. Their footprints, though weathered by time, remain visible for those who choose to look closely at the ancient Earth and the enduring narratives whispered across the millennia.